better than before. CalmWaters. Summary. 3 hours and 2 sleeping kids later, they sat across from each other in Ida's new nest, where Rain had been sleeping as well for the past month. So Ida started, and she was immediately cut off by a knock on the door. "Come in," Ida said, the door slowly creaking open. Luz stood in the doorway, King snuggled into her arms. Or, sometimes important talks are hijacked by kids, and that's okay. Post-canon. Notes. Work text. This wasn't exactly where Rain had pictured the two of them having this talk, if they had ever pictured having this talk at all. But it was good, nonetheless. Currently, Rain was sitting atop a rather impressive pile of books that someone, probably Luz, had decided wasn't a complete hazard if it toppled over. Ida was on a much shorter stack of books, one leg crossed over the other. Rain was still shorter, even with the added height of the books. Something about that didn't seem fair. "So," Ida said, a content smile on her face. Rain was still getting used to the state she was in. She was confident and happy, while still being the same person she had always been. The same person Rain had fallen in love with. She was ready for this talk. Rain was probably ready. It had only been a month since Bellows had been defeated, and the rebuilding process had started on the Boiling Isles. They'd been staying with Ida for the duration of that month while she got things back to normal in her own house. And her kids. Rain had never known that peace and chaos could come so hand in hand. So, Rain looked down at their feet, then met Ida's eyes. They were more confident than they'd been before, back when they were teenagers, children. They'd had to learn to trust in themselves. There had never been a moment for doubt. There had never been a moment for doubt. Doubt got you discovered. Doubt got you petrified. Doubt got your friends petrified. There had never been a moment for anything, really. Outside of the mission. There existed in Revolution the sacrifice of martyrdom, a direct sacrifice of your life, which Rain was more than willing to give, and the complete sacrifice of oneself. The toll all of the stress took on your body, mind, and identity. "Are you going to stay?" Ida tilted her head. "Well, my previous living quarters are completely destroyed." That's not what I asked. "Are you going to move back in when everything's not destroyed? You have kids now." "I don't want to be in the way." Rain gripped onto the edges of the books as the tower began to sway. Ida hadn't seen furniture as a priority as she fixed up the house, since Luz and King were comfortable sitting on the floor. Rain might bring some in themselves if they had to sit on top of a precariously leaning book tower one more time. "Rain," Ida snorted, and tightened. Rain's heart still jumped whenever she said their name, like they were still 16 and happy. "You're not in the way. I think you do the dishes more than the rest of us combined." "That's not that hard," Rain said with a smirk, Ida laughing in response. "Aw, you're right. Still. Listen," she was cut off by the sound of the front door being thrown open. Only Luz ever did it with that much force. Said girl was with them for the week, since her human school had the week off. Even when the school wasn't off, though, she was frequently in and out, spending all of her weekends and breaks there, and some of her school nights, when she could convince Camila. Rain knew how hard it had been for Ida and King to not have her around constantly. But they made it work. "Hey, Ida." Luz poked her head in. "There you are." The teenager's eyes moved from Ida to Rain, then back again. "Oh. Anyway, King and I were chasing each other and he fell and I guess there was a rock or something. Now there's a lot of blood." Ida had already hopped down from the books she was on, giving Rain a brief apologetic look and following Luz outside. Rain hopped down as well, but remained standing in the room. They always had the slightest nagging feeling inside that they were somehow intruding when anything big was happening. They didn't quite know their place yet. Hopefully the conversation with Ida, whenever they actually got around to having it, would help. Ida walked back inside after a few minutes, grabbing a towel and doing her best to stem the flow of blood from a long cut on King's leg. Luz stood beside her, a hand on her little brother's head. Finally, Ida lifted him up. "I'm going to go find someone who was in the healing coven. I'll be back soon. Rain, could you make sure Luz doesn't also end up bleeding from her head or something?" She lightly elbowed Luz. These two's injuries tend to occur in quick succession. "Sympathy blood," King said, not looking as upset about the bleeding as Rain would have expected for a kid his age. "Wait, how old was he?" "More like shared recklessness," Ida said with a roll of her eyes, walking out the door. Rain turned around, finding himself fixed with the very intense gaze of a 15-year-old girl. "Hey," Luz said, jumping up to sit on the book tower Rain had previously been on. She seemed to enjoy the hazardous swaying. A variety of responses ran through Rain's head and they paused, trying to pinpoint the correct one. "What were you actually doing outside?" Rain asked, then internally cringed. Out of everything they could have said, why had they picked that? Luz, however, took it all in stride. "Well, we were trying to tame Dash." "Never mind, I have a feeling I don't want to know." She grinned in response. "So, how are you liking it here?" She hopped down from the tower and started peeling stickers with slightly offensive words off the walls that King had stuck on them earlier. "It's different." "Yeah," Luz smiled, "we like having you here though, you know? Me and King. And Ida." Rain didn't miss the way her eyebrows rose at the last name. "Really?" "Yeah, of course. You're the only one who does the dishes." Luz elbowed them, and Rain couldn't help but admire, not for the first time, the girl's openness with everyone around her. "You also make Ida laugh, you let King climb you, and you draw with me. You make everyone happy." "You all make me happy too," Rain said. And that was the truth. "Great!" Luz bounced on her toes, looking around the room. Rain knew that look. They'd seen it in Ida's eyes many times before. It meant the girl needed something to occupy her mind, or else she would find something, likely something that would put her in the same situation as her brother. "Luz, you were showing me drawings you made based off of the Azure series yesterday, correct? Could you show me how to draw them?" they asked. Luz's eyes widened. "Yes. Give me a second." She darted off at top speed, coming down after a minute with an armful of loose papers, 2 pencils and a pen tucked behind her ear. Truly, Rain's outstanding talent in music hadn't transferred over to art at all, and they were okay at best. But that didn't matter in this situation. They were more than happy to listen to Luz ramble about the characters, her feet kicking against the floor as she lay on her stomach. She was like Ida in so many ways. Especially her inability to stay still, her impulsivity, and her creativity. She was also unlike Ida in many ways as well. They were still drawing when the door opened again, and Rain realized it was dark out as they looked up. Oh. Neither Luz nor them had had dinner at all. "Hey," Ida smiled as she walked inside. King held at her hip with her arm. His eyes were drooping and he stifled a yawn through his claws. "Hi, Ida!" Luz jumped up. "Is King all right?" "Luz, look, I have a scar." King proudly showed off the wound, which was stitched together by healing magic now. "More like a temporary mark," Ida said, but didn't intervene as Luz and King started talking enthusiastically. Rain stood up and walked over to her. Her hand slipped into theirs. It felt familiar and natural. Rain never wanted to let go again. "You two should get ready for bed. It's dark. And the adults need some alone time," Luz said, shooting finger guns in their direction. Rain didn't think they had ever seen a more unimpressed look on Ida's face. "Go put on pajamas," Ida passed King to his sister, Luz running off. The voices of the two were still audible even once they were in their respective rooms. King was carried quite a bit by Ida and Luz whenever anything stressful happened. Though they had never held King before, Rain had realized it was comforting for all parties involved. After everything the kids and Ida had gone through, Ida was quite determined to give them the best childhood ever, for the remaining childhood years they had left. "Sorry about that," Ida said, their hands separating all too soon. "There's a lot of blood and bruises with those two. And explosions. Definitely your children." "Huh, yeah. It feels good to think of them as that, even though I could never see myself as this just a few years ago. Anyway, Camila and I had a talk with Luz about what she wanted, and what was best for her. Now you're the only one left I need to have a talk with." Ida had never been this open to communication before. She was learning from Luz, like Luz was learning from her. 3 hours and 2 sleeping kids later, they sat across from each other in Ida's new nest, where Rain had been sleeping as well for the past month. So Ida started, and she was immediately cut off by a knock on the door. "Come in," Ida said, the door slowly creaking open. Luz stood in the doorway, King snuggled into her arms. Rain knew immediately that it was a bad night for them, from the nervous, guarded looks on their faces. After everything the kids had been through, there were quite a few bad nights, when they woke up from nightmares, or couldn't get to sleep in the first place. Ida had many as well. Rain now had a difficult time coming to terms with their own feelings, or weaknesses, after their constant battle to remain without mistakes in their position. But they did have a hazy memory of Ida's fingers stroking through their hair sometime last week, when they had woken in the middle of the night. Ida didn't say anything to the kids in the doorway, just moved to the side and made room for them. "Sorry," Luz said quietly, curled up at Ida's side. Ida ruffled her hair in response, then wrapped an arm around her. King moved from the girl's arms after a minute and stumbled across the nest to Rain's lap. Rain let out a small breath, but didn't move, allowing him to snuggle into their chest. King was asleep within 5 minutes. Luz took a little longer, her eyes looking out. King was asleep within 5 minutes. Luz took a little longer, her eyes looking out the window at the moon, before finally shutting. Camila was talking about therapy, the other day. "You know, after everything?" Ida yawned, meeting Rain's eyes. "That's a good idea. Nothing is really that organized yet, but I'm sure we'll find something. And I'm sure you'll get to organizing things at some point," Ida smiled. "You were a good leader, Rain." After all of these years, Ida still had the ability to make them blush. "So, about the talk. Are they really asleep?" Rain motioned to Luz and King. "Uh-huh. Luz does those little kicks in her sleep, which hurt, and King is a terrible fake snorer, so obviously that's real." Ida trailed off for a moment. "I know this probably isn't how you pictured it." "You're right." Rain gently shifted their grasp on King, his little chest rising and falling against theirs. Luz kicked Ida's side in her sleep, Ida letting out a muffled curse. It's better. Okay, Ida smiled.